Hi everyone, Adam Steele from Hot Pole Studios here, and today I've had a pretty rough day. I've had a rough few days because the studio computer in the middle of a session decided to die. More specifically, this hard drive, the SSD that the operating system and everything is installed on, decided it doesn't want to work anymore. So technically I lost everything that we've done over the last 3 months. But we didn't, because we backed everything up, and we're going to talk about how we're going to reinstall Windows in all of our applications and get all of our files back. So most of this video is going to be a live capture of me doing this one bit by one bit. So it's actually quite a nice excuse for me to do a computer upgrade in some ways. That the SSD, the solid state drive that I was using, was a Patriot Blast, which wasn't the most expensive drive at the time, and it was a SATA Serial ATA, still tons faster than those spinning Rust drives, but not nearly as effective as the new type of drive called an NVMe drive. NVMe is, they're kind of like they're about the size of a stick of gum. They're tiny, and they slot into a slot generally on the motherboard of the computer, and the data goes directly to the processor, just boom, which means that the speeds can be ridiculous and loading times are practically non-existent, which can save you even more time than a regular SATA SSD. So the first thing to do, of course, is install that, which I got a Samsung 970 EVO. I also got a thermal pad for it and a little heatsink, because NVMe drives go so fast they can generate quite a lot of heat. So these can help to extract the heat away, because you may have seen some of the PC building videos I've done before where the components that I use are all passive. There are no fans anywhere. There's nothing in this control room that makes any kind of noise apart from me. So having installed that in that little slot on the motherboard, I turned the computer back on, and I got a USB stick with an install of Windows 10, which you can download from Microsoft with their media creation tool. And I didn't actually have a USB stick to hand, so I used an SD card in an SD card reader, which functions exactly the same way. Once you plug it into a machine, you get that installed and off you go. So then I got the network drivers installed for this motherboard and then connected it up to the internet, and it's done the rest of the things, including all the drivers itself up to that point. So we'll rejoin the capture, as it were, just after that, because there are programs like Ninite that are pretty cool to talk about, I think, even though it's a nerdy thing. It'll save you a lot of time in setting up computers like this. Let's check it out. Alright, so the first thing that I've done with the computer is install Windows. Then I've connected the computer up to our network, installed the LAN drivers, the network drivers, and then Windows has done its own thing in terms of sorting the rest of the hardware out, apart from the specific stuff like the RME RAID-AT. So the next thing is I installed XSplit so that I can show you the screen that you can see now, and I got a load of installers last night because the drive didn't die today, it died a couple of days ago, which has given me a chance to go buy a new drive and get all the installers for a lot of the software that I'm going to use, whilst being sat on my sofa at home in comfort looking after the baby. So here I am, everything's copying across, and while that does that, I'm going to go get myself a cup of coffee so we can talk about why this pile of junk is eventually decided to die. And then not too far from now, I'm going to switch from the onboard audio on the webcam to this microphone right here, but I'm going to need the drivers installed to do that. So not going to be long, and then we'll sort that out. Okay, so I've got my coffee. I've got my iLock to hand for when I need that. I've got the old drive, I don't know why. I've got my USB stick, which I keep on my keys, which I got all my installers for. I don't know if I'll still need that. I don't think so. And we've got this folder marked installers. So let's just grab a list. So I made a list. I just wanted to talk very briefly about Patreon, because this video is sponsored by you directly through Patreon. These kind of things happen to a studio where everything's gone wrong and we need to find the money for things like replacement hard drives, and even though we're trying to keep the lights on, this is down to you guys. That the money that gets brought in through Patreon, which is crowdfunding supporting from you guys, helps us to carry on the good fight, as it were. We get to not have to completely go into ridiculous bankruptcy because things like this happen. I'm being extreme here, of course, but I'm always very grateful for any help that we receive through Patreon. And in return, we want to give you things like early access to videos, direct connections to us to ask us questions so we can get back to you quicker. We're planning on doing more regular podcasts and viewers' comments, and of course if you're a patron through Patreon, you will get first shout on those questions. So thanks everybody. Back to the video. Alright, so even before all of those installers, let's get on the interwebs and get a program called Ninite. Ninite is amazing. Ninite will save tons of time, and is one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, to show you this, because look at all these, pick the apps you want. In my case it's going to be Chrome, Windows Stat, Discord. I'm not going to get Skype just because there's a specific version for people like me that wires into XSplit for streaming. Dropbox, VLC, I want the K-Lite codecs. What else do I want? I want 7-zip, definitely. 7-zip's my go-to. Let's get a copy of OpenOffice just for the hell of it. Malwarebytes and Spybot 2. WinSCP is what I use to upload things to FTP servers. Just down there. And then when you've ticked all the boxes that you want, you click Get Your Ninite. It gives you a tiny little installer, which you can either save or run. I'm just going to run it. And this amazing thing will happen. It'll take a couple of seconds. And I'll show some details. And that's it. I can now just drink my coffee in peace. And all of those apps that I just ticked, the latest versions will get installed while I wait. The internet's fairly fast here, so this shouldn't take long at all. It doesn't come up with any pop-ups, doesn't come up with any next, agree, next stuff. It just installs them all. The other cool thing about Ninite is that if you've not updated all of your apps in a while, you can then just go back to the Ninite website, tick all the boxes for the programs you want, and then it will just update all those programs. And you don't have to worry about any going on through this installer, that installer. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with things like, you know, specific niche stuff like audio stuff, DAWs, that kind of thing, which is a bit of a shame. Maybe someone should make a Ninite for pro audio guys. But until that happens, we're just going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. I'm just going to close Edge down, because that's probably the last time I'm ever going to see Edge on this computer. Dropbox is going to be the big one here, because Dropbox is the one that I'm really relying on to get all my files back. And that's going to hog all of my internet bandwidth for probably the next couple of hours. So while that's doing, we can at least install all the other programs. Now the whole Dropbox thing, this is something that I've started doing 6 months back, 3 months back, can't remember, quite a while back. But the old mantra goes, if you're saving stuff in the digital world, that is to say on hard drives or wherever, if it's not stored in triplicate, it doesn't exist at all, because if a drive fails, the data's gone. So the clickbaity thing at the start of this video was, I've lost all my data, I've lost all the studio recordings. But the way that I have everything set up, every project that I record, the folder for all that is in the Dropbox account. I've got a Dropbox Pro account, which is 1 terabyte of storage, and what that means is as soon as I hit stop on a recording of any particular channel, that then begins uploading. And what that boils down to is that even if the computer goes bang, power supply goes, motherboard fries, whatever, every single audio track up to that point is automatically backed up online. It's all there, and I open my laptop up, everything gets downloaded. So I've got a copy there, I've got a copy on another computer as well. Every few months I do archive all the old data onto 2 separate hard drives, which one's kept here, one's kept at my house, so that even if one particular place was to have some sort of accident, there's always something that's worth happening. But Dropbox has saved me tons of time. And no, this video isn't sponsored or anything like that. I just wanted to mention that because there are other ways of doing it as well. Some people use Backblaze. I used to try and use Google Drive, but I was finding that if you hit save on a project file that was in a folder that was run by Google Drive, it really didn't like that. It would lock files down, it would cause problems. And like I said, there are other solutions. I just have found that Dropbox causes me the least hassle. Back on with the install, off we go. Interesting that this is installing one program whilst downloading another, which is going to thrash the hard drive quite a bit, but this NVMe thing, I'm going to bring this onto the other screen, and that's hardware monitor. Okay, that's really annoying. Why can't I just bring that across screens? So hardware monitor is a program that's good for nerds like me, that shows me all the temperatures of everything, all the voltages. Most of the time you're not going to care about any of this, let's be honest, but I can see that my processor's absolutely at 100%. The hard drive temperature, which is what I was interested in, is sat at a very low 40 degrees C, 104 Fahrenheit. These things can get to 100 degrees C or more, so I'm thinking that the heatsink and the thermal pad that I put on earlier, between them, they're spreading the heat out into the motherboard and into the air, which is giving it a much more balanced setup, which is keeping these nice and cool. So that's 41 degrees now. I can live with that, you know. Seeing as though some of these drives get to 100, 40, considering the ambient in here is about 20, absolutely fine. So, I'm just going to move that back. That's quite annoying. But yeah, so I'm going to sign into Dropbox and I'm going to blur this out, of course. Okay, so sync everything. Now I could say open my Dropbox, and when I do, there's going to be nothing in it. Get started. Don't need any of this. I've used Dropbox before. Yes, so now Dropbox is empty. Dun, 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 la, 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 la. Okay, so Night is finished and all those programs are installed. Dropbox will slowly, downloading 5,000 files it says, and more and more and more and more. So there we go. So I'll come back to that later on when that folder marks Studio. Alright, so Night's got all that stuff installed. Dropbox is downloading a squillion files. And next up is the installers folder. So this desktop I'm going to clear at the end, I promise. Don't worry about all this mess on the desktop because that is going to go. So I have a whole folder full of installers. Where do I start? Start with drivers. So one mark driver HDSP. Open. I always open stuff with 7-zip. So RME installer, because I'm running an RME RAIDAT, as a lot of you will know, and I want to get that up and running before anything, so that any DAWs that I install, anything like that, will know where to look for ACO drivers. So this shouldn't take long at all. Okay. Device updated. Lovely. Finish. And then, is the total mix starting now? Next thing then would be, there was another thing that I downloaded, which is an interesting RME thing, which is to update the RAIDAT itself. There's a new version of the firmware for the RAIDAT, which, as far as I can tell, does things like improve stability. Not that it was ever unstable, but if it was 99.99% stable before, it's going to be 99.9999% stable now. That's typical RME though, is there's no such thing as good enough. It's, yeah, anything that they can do. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is turn the computer off, properly off at the power, properly back on, and then we'll see you back here very shortly. It's worth noting at this point that there were a couple of technical issues trying to film this, because installing drivers and that kind of thing as you go. After installing XSplit, I was using the webcam's own microphone. Then I switched to using some of the equipment that's behind me here, but all the firmware updates and that kind of thing was causing things to go a bit screwy. So I ended up going through 5 different microphones and different preamps and all sorts of stuff just to get some sound through. So if it all sounds a bit weird at different points, that's why. Local recording, okay, there we go. Hey, so now I've got this microphone here working through Total Mix, as you can see when I get a little overexcited and clip the damn thing. Okay, so that's great, because that means we can minimize that now. Go to our installers again and start with the real big boys. So, actually, before I do anything, let's just remove Edge from the taskbar, stick Chrome on the taskbar, and get a copy of Reaper.fm, which would be, yep, set that's default. No, switch anyway. How dare you, Microsoft. So, latest 64-bit version of Reaper for Windows. 3 seconds left. Done. Opening. I agree. Next. It's not going to take long at all. Install. This is literally how long it takes to install Reaper, by the way. Run now, yes, done. That's it, we're up. Compared to some of the programs that I've used which have ridiculously long installs, yes, select an audio device, that would be ACO, Hammerfall, all of it. Yes, okay, done. Yes, Reaper is not free, and I will put my license key in later. I'll find it in my emails and I'll stick that in here. For the meantime, this will do absolutely fine though. Audio device, yep, so I need to change the settings to get the buffer size down. I'm going to stick with 128 for now, but that's it. I have 2.7, 3 millisecond round trip times, and that is most of the time enough for me. So one thing I will have to have a dig in my Dropbox for is all my 15 hours of download left on the Dropbox. 13 hours, make your mind up. One thing I will do at some point very soon is turn my laptop on behind me, which has a copy of the Dropbox on it, which has a LAN functionality. One of the clever things about Dropbox is if you have another computer with the same Dropbox on it, it can use the same network to download all the files and not have to download them all from the internet. So if you've got a faster connection from one computer to another, you can save yourself a lot of time and internet bandwidth by doing it that way. So, the reason that I installed Reaper first is I wanted to go into the VST settings, make sure that everything, so where it says Program Files Steinberg VST plugins, I'm going to delete the /Steinberg out of there, because that's the default, and I just like it to be Program Files VST plugins. VST3 I'm going to leave exactly as that should be, and the reason I'm doing that now is as I save my first plugin, as I install it, that will set somewhere in the registry a default. If you install Cubase before anything, Cubase will make it Steinberg VST plugins, because Steinberg making Cubase also invented VST. I just prefer it the other way. So, before any plugins go on, let's look at my little list again, because the next thing was, yes, the iLok license manager. So that'd be the license support installer. I prefer to do this as soon as possible so that I can get my iLok plugged in, get my licenses done, so that as soon as I install other plugins, they then just work with the latest version of all the licensing. So it's just yes, install, Don't need to read all of that stuff. This is so much faster with this ridiculously fast hard drive. That's brilliant. We're probably waiting on the CPU more than the anything else now. So that was that. Reaper's installed. I am going to restart the computer again because the iLock stuff you want to be running as a Windows service. I know there's a lot of restarts here, but this is all a one-off, so hopefully it'll be worth it. Alright, so 30 seconds later we are back. Everything's trying to start itself up, which is fine by me. Let's just check the DSP settings again. Yep, for Hammerfall. Yep, that's all good. I can see my levels. Let's go. So, let's get the iLock and run License Manager before we even plug it in. It's going to ask me to sign in, I'm sure, which is fine by me because that's how it all works. Okay, so it's now registered the desktop, sign in. I'm going to blur this out, of course. Okay, so as you can see, I have quite a few licenses here. Should be able to plug the iLock in now. Hot Pulse Studios, iLock. Yes, there we go. So it's detected my 0 downtime. It's detected everything. Everything's synced. Off we go. So back to the installers. Now we get serious with installing all our stuff. So Slate Digital's probably our first one. So Virtual Mix Rack, I cannot live without. Oh, CRC failed. Womp womp. Come back to that one then. Why are these CRCs the next lot? So Ozone, let's do Ozone. Pretty sure that downloaded fine. Ozone, you my jam. You my mastering kind of thing. Next. That's the thought. I don't have to set where the VSTs go for Ozone because I use Ozone as a VST3. VST3 seems to be the way that the general PC market is going. Steinberg made that as kind of an update to the older standard, the old VST 2.4. It has a few new funky features, but it can cause compatibility issues with some DAWs. I found that VST 2.4 is generally more reliable with Reaper, and the extra features that VST3 can provide, like, for instance, side chaining, that kind of thing, you can already do all that in Reaper in VST 2.4 anyway, so there's absolutely no real reason to move anything apart from this and possibly Melodyne as VST3 because of the ARA, which is this new thing where you don't have to transfer the entire audio file in Melodyne, which should be interesting. Move on. Let's just go down the list now. So let's see if FGX downloaded properly. Nope. Data error. Yeah, I'll have to get all the Slate stuff again from their website. Alright, so let's start with this VMR what I have just downloaded. That was a gigabyte. That flash of that bar then, that was an entire gigabyte of data being extracted. That was ridiculous. I'm actually waiting now on the install program to run itself rather than be read from a drive. That's just bananas. I accept the agreement. I want everything installed apart from 32-bit VST2 because that can cause me problems and I don't want it. VST plugins. Yep, no Steinberg in that. Install, yes please. Off we go. Alright, that's virtual mix rack done. Let's just follow suit with the rest of the Slate stuff. Virtual tape. Alright, one of the things that you're probably going to ask me, so I may as well address it now, is why am I doing all this? Why am I not just backing my computer up to an image of a drive and then just restoring an image? And the reason is this. This is something that I believe engineers should do every once in a while anyway. My hand has been slightly forced by this drive failure, but it's something that an engineer should do every 6 or 12 months or so, is completely steamroll a computer, completely flatten it and put brand new operating system on there, brand new version of their DAWs, brand new versions of the plugins. Because as you upgrade things, as you upgrade software, as Windows or OS X update themselves, as your plugins get overwritten, as things get overwritten, files get left behind, settings get left behind. A lot of stuff can, in the background, start to not quite be right and corrupt and slow your processes down. And there can be software left on there that you maybe needed once and are never going to use again. There can be things that can cause you all sorts of pain that you just don't need. So it's quite a healthy thing to do, almost like a detox every now and again, to do this. And this way, nothing will be installed on here except for the latest versions of whatever it is that I'm using. So if there were any updates for any software or hardware that I wasn't aware of, they will be in here. So license support install is done. Ozone is done. That's done. That's done. I'm quickly going to restart, I think, at this point, and I just installed that, so I've got recabinet to do. SSD and trigger. I think I'm going to install Stephen Slate Drums 5 now, which would have taken forever on anything other than this ridiculously fast hard drive. Let's see how long this threatens to take, actually, because there are many gigabytes of Slate packs here for Blackbird, CLA, and Stephen Slate SSD 5. Ugh, can't even say it. Anyone who uses this, yes, use UAC, fine. I agree. So, for SSD 5, I have the main SSD 5. I also have the Chris Lord Algae and the Blackbird kits. So, we need to agree. We need to find the Slate Pack files, which should be on the desktop right now. Which, I know you shouldn't put stuff on the desktop, it just so happens that's where it is. And because we're using a single drive setup, which is something else I should probably talk about in a second, then I can just put things in a folder here. Install product, go. So it's checking the integrity of several gigabytes of and look at the temperatures of the drive, which is sitting at a steady 44 degrees. Don't need that open anymore. And this is now chugging through however many gigabytes of stuff. That would be that much. 14 gigabytes of files. It's going through bit by bit. So we can see it went up, crept up a degree to 45 degrees. Now, when I did this originally from a spinning hard drive to my laptop's SATA spinning hard drive again, this took 15-20 minutes. I went and made a coffee, went and played with the baby for a little while, and came back and it still wasn't quite finished. Where this is already, by the look of it, 20% done. Yeah, it's already on file number 2 of 8. This is the kind of thing that you pay that extra for, where I started doing this at 1 PM. I'll probably be done with this entire install of everything by 3 PM. And that's including downloading a lot of files. That's entire operating system, DAW and sample packs install. And you know what? I can live with that. Successfully installed. Cool, and that was the big one. So back to products, let's get CLA installed and then Blackbird installed because they're significantly smaller. Alright, so that's successfully installed and that hardly took any time at all. Finish, done. It's nice that it gives you the choice of where you want sample libraries to be installed. For example, my laptop has a 250 gig solid state drive for its boot up. Also has a 2 terabyte spinning hard drive, which is where I keep things like sample libraries, big stuff, so that I can fit stuff that I need to be fast on the SSD and stuff that just needs to be there but is quite big on the separate drive. It's really quite nice that I can do that. It looks like the installer's pretty much downloaded everything, which means it's almost done. It's just actually doing the rest of the install. Then I can activate licenses, get everything restarted one last time, open Reaper, let all the plugins load up, and we are good. It took a little longer than I thought it was going to take, but that mostly was because the downloading of that, there we go, successfully installed. The downloading of the Grand Rhapsody piano 14GB install took forever. So, time for a restart, then we'll be right back. Okay, one more time, we've done a restart. Let's see where we get. A recording has been started. Let's open up Reaper. Pin to the taskbar, because we're going to use that a lot. And watch this open up. Oh, no valid Waves licenses found. Let's open up Wave Central and activate all those licenses. That shouldn't take long at all, I would hope. Okay, so I've got a load of licenses there now. Skip. No. Oh, why did I skip? Oh yes, I still need to do this. I'll get that from my email address later. That's not really relevant to this video. So let's just make a new track, open up the effects window just to make sure that everything's there. And here we go. So we've got all our wave stuff, a load of slate stuff. Nothing that shouldn't be there is there. Virtual mix rack, for example. Let's get that open. That's the latest version with the Blackbird mics and everything. Boom, there we go. Super fast loading times. Happy times. If I was to go to that channel, there we go. So everything's set up, low latency, all my plugins are installed. Dropbox is still downloading my files, but within a few hours that'll be done. That is it. And so here we are, and the computer behind me is set up. Everything is working, ready for a client to come in tomorrow. So this cost me 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but like I said in the rest of the filming, I was fully intending to do a fresh install. I was on Windows 7, now I'm on Windows 10. All of my plugins, all of my software are on the very latest versions. Everything's set up nice and rock solid, and it's something that I try and do every 6 months or so, and I think is good practice for engineers to do anyway. And having all of my audio data compartmentalized separately from everything that's on here means that in the event of the worst case scenario, nothing is lost. So I really feel quite confident in just paving over a drive. Although, now that I've said that, this experience has taught me a couple of things. Like, I had a few little personalizations in Reaper, a couple of keyboard shortcuts, a few input and output names that I'd changed, and you can save the configuration files separately, which is something I'm going to do now, so that I can then just load that back in rather than have to change them. It'll probably take me 10 minutes to do that, but it's the kind of thing that you don't need that hassle. I'm going to have to recalibrate for SonarWorks, but again, that's no bad thing, because I've been changing sub positions and that kind of thing. I probably should do all that kind of stuff, and this has motivated me, and hopefully this motivates some of you to get your files backed up Make sure that you've got clean installs of everything. Try and make sure you've not got 2 years worth of old programs on there and then you're complaining about why your computer runs slowly. I've been there, I've done it. So hopefully this video has been of some use to you. It's definitely been worthwhile for me. It's the old thing, when life throws lemons at you, make lemonade. So when I got the call, because it wasn't me that the hard drive died on, it was Liam, he called me and said, the computer's not working, the drive's dead. I said, firstly, don't worry about it, it's okay. It's going to cost us some money for a new drive, but we're all right. Everything's backed up and we can make a video about it. So here we are. I hope you appreciate it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, feel free to check out our other videos, as you can find here, or check out our Facebook and Twitter, or our Patreon page, which helps us to make more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.